It is Wednesday, September 20. Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. to talk about the latest news from the war in Ukraine. Let me get TikTok rolling here. In the meantime, introduce yourselves, say where you are from, if you would. And then we will take about 2 minutes to wait for folks to arrive, and then we'll get rolling. Or maybe less than 2 minutes. I don't know. Maybe I'll just start. Anyway, hang on. You can war update, go live. Here we go. All right. Woo. Yes, introduce yourselves if you would. All right, TikTok is rolling. Boom. Good TikTok. Boom. There we go. All right. Hello, all. My White House coffee mug. Woo woo. Made in China, which makes me laugh. There we go. Anyway, how are we doing? Lots of news today. Good and bad news, but we'll see. I mean, good and bad. Positive and negative, I should say. Not bad news, but negative news. Anyway, hey, Flower Lady. Hey, guys. How are we all doing today? Wednesday. Beautiful weather in Washington. Thank God. Thank you, Succeed, for the gift on TikTok. Gorgeous weather in DC. Thank God. We actually have it's not fall weather, but it's, thank you, Big Hawk. It's, I don't know what you'd call it, like 70s, like mid 70s, cool at night. It's absolutely stunning. I forget if that would be, I'm already forgetting what that would be. 20, 22, maybe 23. Anyway, my back, Susan's asking how my back is doing. My back, I thought, was getting better. I stopped taking the pills today. I'm taking the pills again. Thank you, Conqueranga. It was feeling weird again. This afternoon, it's kind of hit me again. I was like, oh. So I'm taking my pills for a few more days. But I mean, it's not terrible considering the first day I was like, my back seized. It did one of those funny things when you just like turn and you go, and who knows why. Anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling. What the heck? People will start rolling in anyway. Thank you, Shane, for that. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show that I do Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. So the way we do the show, just in case, I mean, a lot of you guys are regulars, so I always assume everybody knows. Thank you, Shane, for the gift on TikTok. The way the show works is I will go through the news that I think is important, explain to you guys what I think is going on, and then I will take your guys' questions. Thank you, Dawn. For folks who must get a question in immediately, if you go to YouTube, thank you, Vicky, for the hat. If you go to YouTube, you can ask a super chat question, and I will always answer super chat questions, and I will get to them as the next thing I talk about. So you can do that if you must. I mean, actually, I like it if you must. Thank you, Vicky, because you're contributing to my work. So thank you. The other way you guys can help me, thank you, Dawn and Boy Mom and Chad for the beautiful gift. The other way you guys can help me is with the TikTok gifts. Creators do get a decent portion of the TikTok gifts. They actually do add up. So if you want to support me with that, I very much, and honestly, it's a nice break anyway from the scary news. So please do keep those coming. And I will always try to do a shout out when I see the cool TikTok gifts on the screen as well. All right, guys, let's get rolling here. Thank you, Vicky. Another cool seashore. Today is day 574 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Thank you, Ellie, for the gift. Russia, I saw a really interesting Twitter thread, sort of a essay, let's call it an essay on Twitter, that was really interesting because it's a guy who's former intelligence, I believe U.S. Thank you, Charles. I don't know who the guy is, so I was not going to even tell you guys until I saw the people who are following this guy. The people who are following him include, his name is David D. D as in David, David D. People who follow him include Ben Hodges, former American general. General Peter Zweck, another former American general. We're also talking, I believe, I don't remember if both of those guys were Supreme Allied Commanders of NATO. They may have been. Alexander Vindman, kind of famous in the U.S. Mick Ryan, big British defense expert. Thank you, Ava. A number of other folks, too. So I don't know who, I will tell you, I don't know who this guy is. He is followed by a lot of very important defense types, which makes his analysis interesting. So listen to this. And this analysis was retweeted by President Ilves, who's the former Estonian president, who, is Tulekivi with us today? I don't know if he's here yet. Thank you, Vicky. because I had a very funny experience with him once. But I'll wait for Tulekivi to come one of these nights so I can share my funny experience with the president of Estonia at the time. Thank you for the gift there, for the hat there. Listen to what this guy said. Russian losses overall. Thank you, Joe. Russia's losses overall, and I'm talking deaths here, okay? Thank you, Marcy and Joe. Russia's deaths in the war in the last 18 months, according to this analysis, total 300,000 dead. We're talking dead, guys. We're not just talking, thank you, Louis. We're not talking dead and injured, which is a lot more. He says dead and injured. Thank you, Velika. How are you today? He says dead and injured come to 1 million. So injured is around 600,000 to 700,000. Dead is 300,000. He did this by going through a lot of different sources, including a lot of public sources. Very interesting. Let me just read you some of his analysis. He says, this is devastating. Thank you, LWD. Russia has, and then he does an analysis of what percentage of the draft age population has been killed at this point. Okay, listen to this. He says Russia has about 140 million people. Actually, it's like 150 million, but close enough. 140 million people, half men, half women. That gives you about 70 million men that can be drafted in principle, right? Obviously, it's less than that because you've got children. Moscow and St. Petersburg have not really been touched by the draft. Thank you, Ali. Intentionally and adventurous with the heart there. Thank you. The Russians have intentionally not been drafting people in Moscow and St. Petersburg because those are the elites, right? They're taking it from the countryside. They're getting the poorer people, the ethnic people, all of that. So he says, take out Moscow and St. Petersburg. That's 20 million. You're now left with 50 million men that are typically draft age, okay, in Russia. Of that, or I should say draftable. Thank you, user 72. Of that, 70% is not draftable. Thank you, Cami. They're either too old, too young, or too infirm. That leaves you with 15 million Russian men who can be drafted. Now, first of all, this is very interesting because I've never really seen an analysis of what the draftable Russian population is. So he says around 15 million, 1.5, okay? So you're talking, thank you, Dora, about one of every, so he's saying 1 million are dead or injured at this point of Russian troops. So you are talking about one of every 15 draftable men in Russia have already been killed or wounded and basically put out of commission by the war. In some communities, it's probably closer to 1 in 5. It just so happens that this 1 in 5 are the ones that keep the country running: mines, oil fields, timber, manufacturing. And this is not counting how many will come home damaged from PTSD or just go nuts and kill people. It's already happening. He says, keep in mind, we're not even 2 years into the war yet. Now, what's really interesting, he did a whole thing about Afghanistan too, and I've pointed this out before, guys. Keep in mind, okay, this is one analysis, but as I said, this is somebody who's followed by a lot of the top former American generals, which makes this guy's analysis at least interesting to me. He says he thinks that 300,000 Russian troops have been killed already. You've got to keep in mind that Afghanistan, that went on for 10 years with Russia, thank you, Vicky, about 14,500 Russian troops were killed in Afghanistan over 10 years, 14,500. We are talking potentially 300,000 Russian troops have been killed in the last year and a half. That is a horrific difference. Afghanistan, thank you, Pedro. Afghanistan was so significant in terms of how it hit the Russian psyche. It helped bring down the Soviet Union. He noted how in Russia today, you will still find monuments to the Afghan war all over Russia. And again, this is a war that only 14,500 Russian men were killed. It looks like 300,000 Russians have been killed in Ukraine. Thank you, boy mom. Anyway, just a very interesting analysis. Now, we should not think that the Ukrainians aren't suffering as well. Okay. I mean, if Russia's suffering that, Ukraine is suffering significant losses as well. And we know, particularly with the counteroffensive, a lot of Ukrainians are getting hurt. A lot are getting killed. So I don't want to minimize that and gloss it over. But the point is, this is really bad for Russia. And as much as we talk about, can Ukraine hold on, right? We don't talk enough about can Russia hold on and how long Russia can hold on. Pretty bad for them as well. Right as I came on with you guys, we don't have any more information, but literally this is just breaking. Thank you, Big John. There are reports of explosions all over Crimea, especially Western Crimea. Crimea, as you guys know, territory in southern Ukraine, occupied by the Russians since 2014. There were reports of explosions all up and down the coast here, which are Navy bases and things like that. Also, some explosions reportedly middle north of Crimea around here. This is significant. Thank you, Witch in Boots. Very nice gift and cute name. This is significant because the Ukrainians have been hitting Crimea pretty hard over the last several weeks. They are clearly trying to soften it up for an eventual invasion. So just keep an eye on this. I mean, the last week especially, there have been, I should say the last 2 weeks, right? This is Crimea is the place where they hit the ship, the landing ship. They basically put it out of commission. They put a submarine out of commission. They put actually a hovercraft out of commission. They've done a lot of damage. So just very interesting. ATACMS. All right. So on with the rest of the news. Reuters reported today that President Biden will not be including ATACMS missiles in the package that he's giving Ukraine. This was a follow-on to what we talked about yesterday. Biden's going to announce a military package worth $325 million. Thank you, Jonathan and Calman. But we are not going to include the ATACMS. Now, thank you, Marie. What's the deal with ATACMS? ATACMS are a somewhat long-range missile. I mean, it's funny. We call them long-range, but they go kind of like 200 miles or 300 kilometers. I guess in military terms, that's long-range. I don't think of that as long-range, but whatever. That the Ukrainians say they desperately need. Defense experts, a lot of them think Ukraine desperately needs, and the Biden administration has been refusing to provide them. Thank you, Courtney. Biden has provided, or his administration, lots of different excuses as to why. I will say that when somebody keeps providing different excuses as time goes on, it usually means there's another reason they're not telling us, right? It usually means the reasons are BS. So Biden was arguing that, oh my God, it would be an escalation. Putin would freak out. And then the Brits turned around and gave similar missiles, and the French turned around and gave similar missiles. But they're cruise missiles. From what we hear publicly, they don't go as far as the ATACMS, and they've got to be launched from plane wings. Now, the Ukrainians have done quite successfully with these. The cruise missiles, the French and the British, are the ones that were used about a week or two ago that they fired on the Russian ship and the Russian submarine that got damaged, basically put out of commission, right? They used the cruise missiles. So they are effective, but you've got to fire them from planes. That's one big problem. What's nice about the ATACMS is you can fire them from HIMARS. HIMARS are the scoot and shoot guns, in essence, that the Ukrainians have for firing missiles. They come from the Americans. They literally can imagine a truck with missiles, a missile launcher on its back, right? But really big missile launcher. So it can drive up somewhere. Thank you, Pam, for the TikTok gift. It can drive up somewhere, set itself up, shoot within a couple minutes, I believe. And then I also want to say within a minute drive away. Thank you, Vicky. Now, that's super significant because typically with artillery, other systems that you set up, it takes a while to set them up. Thank you, Jim, which puts them at risk. It also takes a while to break them down. Once these systems fire, the Russians are able to see where they came from. I mean, if you think about it, right? If at nighttime, probably even better. But if you look and you see a missile fire, you see the path of the missile, and you can even videotape it. By the way, videotape. That's an old word. You can even take video, take a movie of it, right? Well, all you have to do is kind of get a really good movie, put it in reverse, and you can see where it came from. So if it's able to scoot within 5 minutes, that's really good. Because it basically means it gets away before the Russians can hit it. In any case, the issue here is Biden, first of all, his people say, oh my God, it would be an escalation. We can't do this. Russia would freak out, right? And go nuclear or whatever. Then they said, oh my God, we're afraid of the Ukrainians. Those crazy, they didn't say crazy, but that's what they mean. Those crazy Ukrainians, thank you, Elizabeth, will attack Russia because the missiles go far enough. They could attack Russia. Now, that's BS. Thank you, Davey. That's BS because, first of all, Ukraine already has missiles that can attack Russia, right? We've given them missiles that go 50 miles. Well, 50 miles is enough to attack Russia. I mean, big deal, right? Thank you, Chief. They're not doing it. The British missiles, the French cruise missiles and the British cruise missiles, they go, I'm trying to think, what is it, guys? Is it, what do we say publicly is the distance? I thought, thank you, Adam. I'm reading that the British cruise missiles and the French cruise missiles go slightly less than the ATACMS, but I thought Callum and other folks here were saying they actually go much farther. In any case, The bottom line is the British cruise missiles and the French cruise missiles at least go around the same distance that the ATACMS go. And guess what? Thank you, Wayne. One, Putin didn't take it as escalation. He didn't declare nuclear war. Two, the Ukrainians, when we gave them longer weapons, in this case, the British and the French ones, longer range weapons, they didn't attack Russia, right? Thank you, Bradley, meaning they didn't use the weapons to launch into Russian territory. So the American excuse is BS. Well, then we hear from Biden, oh my God, we don't have enough of them. That's the problem. And we need them for, Taiwan if war breaks out there. Well, the defense guys say, well, we really don't need them for Taiwan, a different kind of war. And a couple of weeks ago, we find out some folks at Defense Department say, oh my God, we have more than we realized. It's actually, we have enough. Well, we have enough, it seems. Thank you, Elizabeth. But President Biden is still not including them in the missile package that he is providing to a weapons package that he's providing to Zelensky this week. As I said, this is particularly significant this week because, and this is something you all wouldn't know, but when heads of state meet, when they have summits, in this case, Zelensky is coming to the White House to meet Biden, right? It's not just like there happened to have a meeting in New York when Biden was there for the United Nations, right? Zelensky is meeting Biden at the White House. When that happens, and particularly you're at war like this, you announce something, okay? You announce some new agreement, some new whatever. In the case of war, obviously you'd be announcing some new weapons to go. This is the opportunity for Biden to announce ATACMS because the whole point is you want to announce something extra. To sort of it's hard to explain, but that's when you announce these things. That means that the White House literally didn't just not announce it. They thought about it. They said, this is the big meeting. This is the big meeting. This is when we would announce it. And somebody there, Biden, said, no, we don't do it. Which means Biden is still afraid of angering Putin and still afraid that Putin will do something crazy if we piss him off or, don't give him an off-ramp or whatever the hell he's saying. This stuff really ticks me off. We've talked about it before. I did about a 10-minute video actually on TikTok about it today. Ticked off some of the folks reading, but that's too bad. I support Biden's effort in this war. I think he's done a great job, but he has not done a perfect job. And when it comes to war and genocide, I do not grade on a curve. You don't win a war by grading on a curve. Right? You win a war by doing the right stuff, and he's doing a lot of the right stuff, but he's not doing enough of the right stuff because he doesn't want Ukraine to win. He wants Russia to he wants to stop Russia from losing. I'm going to get this wrong. He doesn't want Ukraine to win. He doesn't want Ukraine to lose, and he doesn't want Russia to lose either. He wants it to be a tie because a tie, he thinks if he gets a tie, then they can get together and reach a treaty and all of this, which is also BS because if they reach a tie, then it means Russia gets 17% of Ukraine that they control right now. And if Russia controls 17% of Ukraine, then the war was worth it and Russia will be back for more. Thank you, Rose, for the lights on TikTok. Really ticks me off. I do know what Biden wants. The thing is, look, guys, I will tell you this. There is always a chance I'm wrong because exactly until I talk to President Biden, I don't know, but I will tell you this. I have been doing politics in Washington, D.C. with 2 nasty years in New York at the evil United Nations. But otherwise, I've been doing Washington politics since 1985. Thank you, Fred, for that. I have worked in Congress. I've worked in a lot of places. I am pretty darn good at analyzing American politics. I will not try to analyze French politics and German politics. I may get ticked at them, but I'm not an expert. I am an expert at American. And and by the way, too, long story, I'm not going to go into it, but I've also ticked off American presidents. Okay. George Bush's White House got pissed at me. President Obama himself got pissed at me. It's in a book. I can tell you about it later. But my point is, I know how these guys think. I know how it works. And there is a damn good chance that I am correct about Biden and what I'm seeing. And it's unfortunate because, as I said, I think I am somebody you should trust on this because I am somebody who supports Biden. I think he's done a great job on Ukraine, but he's not done. He's, as I said, he gets a B+. He doesn't get an A. Because he doesn't want Ukraine to win. He just wants to stop Ukraine from losing. And by the way, generals like Ben Hodges and others have said the exact same thing I'm saying. So, All right. Let's move on. It's very annoying. Don't know what to tell you guys. Ukrainian military claims a successful strike on the Black Sea Fleet command post near Sevastopol. This was actually before all the bombs going off right before the show when I came on with you guys. So this has been kind of all day. There have been attacks on Crimea, which is great. The Russians say unknown saboteurs have seriously damaged 2 planes and a helicopter at a military airbase near Moscow. Ukrainian military, actually, this is from Ukrainian military intelligence. That's good. Quick counteroffensive update. The Russian losses have significantly increased in Western Zaporizhia in recent days, according to Institute for the Study of War. Zaporizhia is this province here, this city and this province. Western Zaporizhia means the big counteroffensive battle that's taking place, right? We've got a number of battles happening. You guys know this. We've had fighting here, we've had here, we've had Bakhmut, we've had Kupiansk. The big one, I would argue, is right here. That's the one that Institute for the Study of War says Russian losses have significantly increased in recent days. Great news. The US-based think tank said the Russian military likely struggles with a lack of available combat effective units, that the Russian command is willing to laterally redeploy to the sector on the front. ISW says both Russian and Ukrainian sources credited superior Ukrainian this is interesting, by the way. Listen to this. Russian and Ukrainian sources credited superior Ukrainian combat coordination, more precise artillery fire, and stronger electronic warfare systems for recent Ukrainian advances south of Bakhmut amid continued discussions of significant Russian losses. So not only have the Russians been losing a lot more men, well, especially in Western Zaporizhia, but Bakhmut is east of there, but also the Ukrainians' combat coordination is the one that stuck out to me, because that's some of what the Allies have been trying to teach the Ukrainians, is much better how to sort of coordinate everything with their troops and their weapons. Thank you, Sunshine. And the fact that they're A, doing a good job, and B, seem to be running circles around the Russians and basically hurting them is good news. Poland. So some not good news coming between Ukraine and Poland, which I think has gotten a little out of control here. Thank you, Dora. The Ukraine, I do not pretend to be an expert on Ukraine and European grain policy, but Ukraine, as you know, the Russians have been causing mayhem with Ukrainian grain exports. They shut off the grain exports by sea. The Ukrainians have had to find other ways of exporting their grain. Grain is a huge export for them. It's also very important to the world. And the Ukrainians, for example, have been increasing land exports across Europe, okay? Sending it through Poland, sending it through other European countries. Well, the Ukrainian grain is basically cheaper than the grain coming from these countries, and it's starting to undercut, or it has undercut, I should say. Thank you, Ellen, for the gift on TikTok. It has undercut the local farmers. And of course, I know in America, farm politics, very important. Poland, for example, has an important election coming up, I believe next month, for the presidency, among other things. So I think it's the presidency. I shouldn't say it is, but I'm pretty sure it is. So a lot of sensitive politics going on, okay, in Poland. Well, Poland, like some other countries, has been cutting back on the Ukrainian grain imports, how much can come into the country, all of this. Ukraine's been getting fed up about it. Ukraine started threatening them back. I don't recall whether Ukraine actually cut back on some of the imports from Poland or listed the ones they will cut back. But Zelensky then went to the United Nations. He criticized Poland at the United Nations yesterday in his big speech. The Poles got pissed off, and Duda then went after Zelensky and basically warned the Ukrainians and said, you better remember who's been saving you. Thank you, Heine. It's gotten very nasty. This is not helpful. I understand from the Ukrainian perspective why they're upset. I also understand from the Polish perspective because, as I said, in America, farm politics, you don't screw with the farmers. I mean, you got to be very, especially in a country where there's a lot of farmers. I'm going to guess in Poland there are, electorally and politically, you've got to be careful. This kind of public sniping is not helpful. I would say I think it was a mistake for Zelensky to go after Poland in his UN speech. Why go after Poland, right? You're at the UN to talk about Russia. You're not at the UN to bitch about Poland. I mean, you can now, I will say this. What Zelensky was doing yesterday, among other things, he was complaining about the United Nations overall and how the United Nations has not done enough. So I think, from his perspective, he's trying to give an overall view and say, all of you here today, yes, a lot of you have been trying to help, but honestly, you've fallen short. And then he went through and listed them and mentioned Poland. I still think that was a mistake. Poland has done so much for the Ukrainians. I mean, Duda, who's the president of Poland, he's president, right? He's not. I always get prime minister and president mixed up with you guys, but I think he's president. We did not like him before the war. He's not a Democrat, and I mean that with a small d. A little hostile to democracy for our views. Nonetheless, he's been amazing on this war. He's president. Thank you, Martusha. Amazing on this war. And I just think that, especially going after allies, you just don't publicly go after allies. You don't do it. I mean, you just don't do it. So I think, maybe what we're seeing too is we're seeing legitimate Ukrainian frustration, which is what I think is also, that the Ukrainians are getting privately probably incredibly frustrated with the Poles, among others, and you're seeing Zelensky kind of lash out. Nonetheless, you can't do it. You can't do it. I'm just saying, like, if my advice would be, and I were talking to the president, I get where you're pissed, and maybe you're right. You just can't do it. They're too important to you. And I would say too, Russia needs to see a united face, a united front. We don't want Russia to see, the allies bickering with each other, because I think it makes us, Ukraine, the front, look a little weaker. Anyway, what else we got here, guys? Let me see. There was that. Norway. So Norway has restricted entry for Russian cars. This is the latest country to do this. Now we basically have an entire front of countries facing Russia that have NATO countries that have now cut off Russian cars. So they're not able to cross the border. The Baltic states did it. Poland did it. Finland did it. And now Norway, which means literally, boom, the Russians cannot cross the border. This is the result of a European Union or European Commission, whatever it is for you guys, decision looking at those sanctions and all of that. What is interesting is that they have basically said no Russian registered cars can cross, but Russian diplomatic vehicles can. So, there's that. Estonia did, Lynn. Yeah, the Baltic states all did it. The third Baltic state, I forget which it was, but the final Baltic state did it at the end of last week. And then from there, it was Finland. And then from there, it was, it was there. So anyway, that's very good news. Before I do a quick I see Tula Kivi's here now. So I will tell you my quick story about President Ilves, who is the former president of Estonia. So I am, it's not Latvia, it's Estonia. I am at a conference, but it's hard to call it a conference in Greece. I was invited by the Greek prime minister who, at this point, I think he was prime minister. He was prime minister at this point, Papandreou, the son, to a conference of important people from around it was very strange. Okay, all right. I get invited to this crazy conference of like 12 or 15 people. It includes the president of Estonia. It includes Joe. Oh my God, I'm forgetting Joe's name. He's even a friend of mine. I'm so tired tonight. Sorry, guys. My back has been killing me and I haven't been sleeping really well. And I'm on some medicine, so my head's goofy. Joe, oh my God, he's literally a friend of mine and I'm forgetting this. Nobel economist, Joe, Columbia. Oh my God, Anna. I know his wife. I'm totally spacing out. Anyway, they were there. I became friends with them. Really cool people. I mean, like a cool group of people, 15 people, and they invited me. It was a little weird. Well, I'm sitting here around this round table and looking at this going, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy who's here, right? Nobel economist, president of Estonia, a number of other people, right? So I'm there and sitting next to somebody and literally around the table. And of course, the other thing too was the Greek prime minister invites me to this, but didn't actually give me the list of who was coming or anything. So I'm there not knowing what thinking it was a bigger conference. It's a conference of 15 people. Looking at the people around the table and going, oh my God, who are these people? And I look at the list and literally I see the president of Estonia is there. And I'm going, There are presidents of European countries at this small conference of 15 people invited, and I'm one of them, right? So I start chatting up the guy next to me. I don't know why. I was like chatting him up, and I'm kind of looking at this list, and I said, wow, this is quite the, I said, I'm kind of blown away by who's here. And he said, oh yeah, what are you, blah, 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 Heine. And I turned to him, I said, so who are you, President of Estonia? And he goes, yes. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. It was awful. He's a fascinating guy, by the way. This is when he was president. He was telling me, because I told him about internet and I was doing all this internet politics stuff, which is why Papandreou was interested in me. And he was telling me all about what Estonia had done with the internet and how they had, I want to say they installed internet nationwide, but like public internet using like the cell phone towers, like crazy. I mean, crazy stuff that they were doing. Absolutely crazy in Estonia. Very cool. Anyway, so we were talking about Estonia and you just got me thinking, and I was waiting for Tulekivi to be here for my Estonian story. And then I met his son. I think his son did show up. The younger son showed up. So we hit it off too. He was very nice. Anyway, it was a very funny story. Free internet and Wi-Fi. Yeah, it was really wild. Absolutely wild. Somehow this was now probably 10 years ago. So it probably wasn't 5G yet, but then again, knowing Estonia, maybe it was 5G. Google it if you want. It was a really interesting story about just how the Estonians have, as Tulekivi was saying, given free internet and Wi-Fi across the entire country. Really cool. All right. Memberships. So one of the ways you guys can help me, if you would consider, I would appreciate it, is by buying memberships, which is basically, I mean, donations are great. I very much appreciate it. Please keep the gifts coming on TikTok, YouTube, the super chats, the super questions. Joe Stiglitz. Thank you, Amanda. That's who it was. It was Joe Stiglitz, who I'm now friends with, and his wife, Anya, who are just wonderful. The nicest people. Stiglitz basically noticed that I was there and didn't know anybody. And Anya said, come over and meet my husband. I was like, thank you. And they're the nicest people. And he's also just obviously a brilliant, fascinating, interesting guy. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Thank you, Jeff and Elizabeth. But yeah, so I do this for a living, guys. I don't like to sort of have to ask, but I've got to ask. I do this for a living. I've been doing this full time since the war broke out. And in order to do this, I've got to pay the bills. And so far, with your guys' contributions and help, I've been able to. In other words, I've been able to continue doing this and not worrying about doing consulting and work on the side. I've only been working on Ukraine. But the way I'm able to do it, it was with you guys helping out with your donations here, with the TikTok gifts, the YouTube gifts. Memberships, I was going to mention really quick, is another great way of doing it, because basically you just give a monthly contribution. It's like Patreon. I do have Patreon, but Patreon, because they're being very anti-Ukraine, I don't tend to push them. And I can't link them to my Discord community because they're evil. But nonetheless, you guys can, you can give monthly contributions. Thank you, Randy, by using Ko-fi. That link is on the screen there. You guys can find Ko-fi in my bio. Just click the link in my bio on TikTok. You'll see all the options, PayPal, etc. But Ko-fi's for monthly donations. You can do Discord monthly donations. You can do Twitch monthly donations, and also use your Amazon Prime membership and donate to my Aravosis account on Twitch. You can use YouTube and do a monthly, which I only was able to start a few months ago. You YouTubers, you will see the wonderful people in green: Susan, Greg, Carlos Bond. I love it. Reminds me of James Bond, but like a Latino James Bond. Carlos Bond. Karen, thank you for the gift there, Frank. Greg, you get it. The folks whose names are green are the folks who are monthly contributors, which is wonderful. And yes, Daniel, and Daniel is still doing it through Patreon, which we're not judging. I told you better to move off of Patreon, probably just because eventually, who knows with Patreon. And Patreon is, whatever. I know you said it was hard. Daniel, I'm leaving you in. You know what I mean? I mean, you're grandfathered, so to speak. Don't worry. But for folks overall, anyway, the bottom line is, if you could consider, if you can afford it, thank you, Brock. And you could, thank you, Frank and Joe Colella. If you would consider doing the monthly contributions, it really helps, because it basically just, thank you, Hedge for the Dinosaur. It helps you sort of judge how much money's coming in, which is a lot easier, frankly, because then you don't have to hit people up so much. Anyway, if you can, I appreciate it. Other payments methods than Ko-fi or PayPal, like paying by cards. First of all, PayPal, you can now pay with credit cards. PayPal, you don't need an account anymore to pay by PayPal, you know. That's the first thing. Thank you, Elizabeth. Second of all, if you go to my, but answer is yes. If you go, you can, yes, gold. KB Brown says gold. You could certainly pay in gold. That would be acceptable. No, you can go to my link on TikTok and click it, and you'll see Cash App, you'll see Venmo. All of those are one time, but they're still great. On TikTok, you can even hit the tips button in my profile, and that's another way of paying. I don't even understand how that one works. But you could go, if you're looking at the monthly, you could go to Ko-fi, like I said. You could go to Discord. Discord itself has a monthly payment system you can do, and you could always go to YouTube and do it. And actually, another way, on TikTok, you could just do TikTok. Now, TikTok, I will say, annoys me because they take a lot of the gifts and a lot of those memberships. They take about 50%, which is frankly too much. But it adds up and it's very helpful. You know, thank you, lizard person. I remember you for the TikTok gifts. They take too much from TikTok, but the TikTok gifts are quite significant and they help. So I would never want to say don't do it, but you could sign up on TikTok as well and become a TikTok subscriber. And there you go. All right, guys. But let's get back to that. And hey, Ang Chris Kabyanga, is that engineer or just Ang in Uganda? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. And Uganda, that's nice. We don't get enough Africans joining us, so I'm glad you're here. And thank you, Timothy, for the heart. All right, let's keep going, guys. All right. President Zelensky. So President Zelensky also spoke to the United Nations Security Council today. He called for restrictions on the veto power of its permanent members, arguing that Russia has abused the veto power. Zelensky, Putin announced today that he will be visiting China. Kind of interesting because he hasn't been able to really go anywhere else. Thank you, Chad. He was able to accept an invitation from North Korea and accepted from China. He wasn't able to go to Brazil, to South Africa for the summit recently of the BRICS countries. He probably will not be able to go to Brazil next year because of it. And literally, there's only a couple places he can go. Basically, 2 dictatorships are the only place Putin can go, which means he can go to the other dictatorships too, like Cuba, but that's about it. Senate Majority Leader Schumer. Okay, so Zelensky, he is now finished with the United Nations, I believe. Tomorrow he will be in Washington, D.C. He might even be arriving tonight. I don't know. D.C. and New York are very close to each other. Like it's a 45-minute flight max. It's less than 45 minutes. So Zelensky could easily fly tomorrow quickly. So either way, but Zelensky tomorrow will be meeting Biden at the White House. Thank you, Adam Goldberg, for the hearts. He will be meeting Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a Republican. Each of them are going to be hosting a meeting for him at the Capitol. He has been invited to meet with the entire Senate, but not the entire House, because a lot of the House members are basically really nasty. I mean, they're anti-Ukraine, but a lot of the anti-Ukraine folks are the kind of crazy. They're crazy. I don't know what to call them. I was going to say far right, but they're not far right. I mean, far right tended to be, in the old days, far right meant really conservative. They're not really conservative. A lot of the really conservative people still support Ukraine. They're the MAGA activist people. So they're the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, these kind of guys. They're nuts, and they would be the kind of people who literally would yell and scream at Zelensky in a meeting and wouldn't shut up the entire time. So he's not even inviting them, which is very interesting. Politico. So speaking of Congress, Politico, a good American publication, had an interesting article today, basically that the government shutdown, there is a chance the U.S. government could shut down in 2 weeks if they don't agree to a budget, and that the shutdown could in fact hurt aid to Ukraine. Let me read you a little bit about this. Wide-ranging furloughs and the Defense Department's suspension of non-essential activities under a shutdown could interrupt the delivery of defense articles, services, and/or military education and training for Ukraine. American soldiers are currently training approximately 200 Ukrainians to operate and maintain the Abrams tanks. They're doing this in Germany. That could screw up that training. A shutdown could also delay training of Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16s. There was some report that some of the deliveries of aid the actual deliveries might not get stopped, but because a number of basically the men and women doing the deliveries would not be considered essential personnel, they could be laid off. Not laid off, but basically they're by law not allowed to work. The way the government shutdown works, by the way, is unless you are an essential personnel, meaning, the White House gets to work. And I should say, maybe not everybody in the White House, but a lot of the people that are essential, members of Congress, have to be able to work anyway, right? Unless you are a non-essential personnel, you got to work. If you're non-essential, you're literally not allowed to work. It is illegal for you if you are not essential. It would be illegal for you to say, it's okay, I'm coming in anyway, or for your boss to have you come in. So they can't just send things and have somebody ship them to Europe if the person doing the shipping is not essential. So there could be problems here. We shall see. Mr. Kabyanga in Ukraine, in Uganda says, I stand with Ukraine in all difficulties. I believe we shall in Russia. Thanks from Uganda. Well, thank you. Okay. For the Ukrainians out there, someone in Uganda is sending his well wishes, which I think is very nice. Thank you for that. All right, that's it for the news today. We've got a couple auction items remaining. We do auctions over on Discord, basically. And our Discord community is free, but you can become a VIP there where you actually help me out by being a paid member. But it's free. But if you're a paid member, I would say the sort of two biggest benefits you get are, one, you can join our weekend shows where every Saturday morning, almost every Saturday morning, I do a show at 11 a.m. Eastern time US, and the paid not TikTok, because TikTok is still broken with Discord, but the paid YouTube subscribers, Discord, Twitch, and I'm forgetting the fourth one, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, Ko-fi. Yep, all of those guys, we do a show, and all of those guys also get access to our VIP auctions. Thank you, Alexander, for the heart. Our VIP auctions, there's two kinds of auctions that I do. Of cool Ukrainian stuff, I get it from Ukraine. Other people get it and send it to me. I do auctions of VIP auctions that are only for the paying members as a thank you. So you can only action those auctions or access those auctions if you're a paid supporter of mine. But the other auctions are for everybody. Are absolutely for everybody, open to everybody. Check it out on the Discord. I will show you really quick some of the stuff coming up next because I'm excited about it. This is stuff I'm putting up tomorrow, so it won't be live today, but I just wanted to show you because I think they're cool. I just think this is the cool. I wish I got more of these. This is a Ukrainian shot glass, but I think it's the prettiest thing. It's the sort of traditional Ukrainian painting, but on a shot glass, and on the top it says Ukraina. I just think it's really cute. And like I said, I wished I bought more of these because I only bought like 2 of them. And now I'm wishing and they're for you guys. I wish I had more, but the shot glass is cute. And honestly, rather than a shot glass, I would use this for toothpicks, right? It's perfect. So very cute. Very cool, decorative painting. This is a woman who is in a small village. Vlad knows her. Her daughter has been volunteering with the camouflage net people that were making the camouflage nets. And the glass is not hand painted. This is hand painted. This is from a Ukrainian artist. The woman has done, she sent me a number of cool different things, but absolutely beautiful work. I mean, you guys can see. Beautiful. And signed it at the bottom, which was, I wish she signed them. She did sign them at the bottom, which is fabulous. I'm forgetting what her name is. Vlad gave me her name in the village, but very beautiful piece. Again, handmade in Ukraine. This is another one I'm not keeping, and I wish I were. This is a Ukrainian matchbox. It is a fridge magnet. There are no matches inside because they weren't really supposed to mail matches to the US. But look at this matchbox. It is the most adorable thing you've ever seen. I just think it's a little out of focus. I just think it's too freaking cute. Look at this. Is that not the best matchbox? And again, it's a fridge magnet too, which is and it says Ukraina on top, which is fabulous. Kramsova, I have to look and see again. Vlad gave me her name. I'll have to double check what her name is. The matchbox is cool. An Azov patch from Ukraine. A new one, but still. So from the Azov battalion. Very cool. People love the Azov patches. So I know several of you are going to be into this. Okay, 2 more things. Second to last thing, a new piece of a Russian fighter jet. This is from an Su-34 as well. This one is cool because I this weekend sat down with a former U.S. Air Force engineer who, Best Worst Gamers, who's one of our folks here. And he says that because if you look really closely, there's the, whatever the heck of those are, the electronics part there at the top attached to the piece of metal here. Look, check out the electronics at the top. He says this is almost certainly the starter box for the Russian fighter jet. In other words, we actually know what it is, which is pretty cool. Because it says it looks to be aluminum, obviously super destroyed, shot down. But because of that piece of technology at the bottom and the aluminum, he says it's the starter. Anyway, I love this kind of stuff. I have lots of different pieces. They're all very cool. Makes a great souvenir. I will say, if you got anybody in your family who likes this stuff, very cool stuff for Christmas as well. And the final thing I will show you briefly, and I'm almost a little afraid of touching this because I don't want to touch this stuff because it's super, it's white. And like I said, I do not want to, here, I'm going to turn this and then I'm not touching it again. I'm going to hold this in place. A Ukrainian goose egg, the traditional Easter eggs. I'm literally afraid of this thing falling here. The Ukrainian goose egg, but look at this one. It's solid white. And it's done in the batik style. The egg is blown out. It's the batik style that they do where they use the wax and then slowly dip it. But I mean, I'm going to do a video so you can fully appreciate how pretty this is. It's absolutely stunning in person. I don't know whether it shows up well enough on camera. Absolutely. Oh, I will show you guys. Like I said, I don't want to touch this too much. The other side has like a flower and birds on it. I'll show you guys. Anyway, I think, oops, it's a little bright, I think, for the camera. Here we go. That's a little better. It's a little too bright for the camera here. There you go. Anyway, very cool. And it is ostrich. And like I said, you'd have to see, well, you can tell next to my finger how big it is. This is not a regular egg. This is much bigger, but these are very cool. This is wax. Oh, it's waxed etched. Absolutely. This is the batik style that they make, pisanka, that they make for the eggs. It is ostrich. Yes, it is ostrich. Not ostrich. Oh, goose. I'm sorry. It's not ostrich. Webb is right. Sorry. Correction. I'm speaking out of turn. She's right. It's not ostrich. It's goose. Correct. I'm sorry. The ostrich eggs are like this. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm spacing. The ostrich eggs are huge. It's a goose egg because it's much bigger than a chicken egg. If I got the chicken egg, you'd notice next to it, it's much larger. Sorry about that. Thank you, Deb. Almost screwed that one up. Anyway, I have lots of other things. Oh, and it comes with a little stand, which is nice too. Lots of other things, but very cool. So we will move on, but check them out. We'll have a lot of additional cool things up there. Oh, what the hell? I will show you one more cool thing that we're going to auction off this week is a Russian military hat from Ukraine, which is very cool. But it's the fur chapka camouflage, but really it's used, which some of you prefer it used. It's used and worn, but it's Russian. And of course it's nice because it's the fur hat, but then you untie these things and it comes down like this on the side of your face, but very cool. And I will stop now. And now we will take questions and I will put these back in here so that I'm not getting anything dirty. All right, here we go. There we go. All right. I've got more stuff, but we'll stop with that. All right, guys. Let's talk. What do we got? Let's do questions. Questions. What do we got? News on the tanks. Nope. The news came last night. Thank you, 863. The American Defense Secretary saying yet again that soon, the American tanks will start to arrive, at least the first batch. So, who knows, right? Who knows? John, not sure what you mean. You've got a bid over on Discord, and I've got the other stuff on Discord right now. A few items are left. These items will be new over there tomorrow. And you bid on I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but you've got a bid over there. But these items are not there yet. So, when am I going to write a book? Probably never. I should have kept a, oh, you're funny. Best worst gamers. Nope. I was, nothing the last few days necessarily. I never kept notes and I should have kept a diary because one of the things we were told early on was keep a diary and, you're going to get subpoenaed at some point. And if you're subpoenaed, you don't want, by Congress, you don't want to have a diary because they're going to look at your diary. And I was like, oh God, forget it. So Remember, West Wing had that too. So I never kept a diary, and I should have kept a diary because the things that I got to see, members of Congress, heads of state. I told you I've got a wonderful story of Yitzhak Rabin, who was just amazing meeting him. Insane story with him. Just really cool stories. And, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I feel like everybody in Washington has got stories for the rest of the country, it's interesting. But I think for those of us who live here, we kind of feel like, we got stories with heads of state, blah, blah, blah. And we don't realize how interesting those stories are, Craig Prescott says, do you think Crimea might be the main target of the counteroffensive? It would shorten the war. I mean, Crimea in some ways is the target of the counteroffensive, but it's a few steps away. And what I mean by that is Russia controls all of this, okay? Ukraine's goal in the counteroffensive is to cut the occupation in half. That causes a lot of problems for the Russians. It basically cuts the Russian supply lines that go across the highway here. It also, then they would blow up the bridge here and basically cut off these two regions, Kherson and Crimea. If they cut off Kherson and Crimea, so the counteroffensive would be to cut off the occupation here, cut off the highway, providing aid to supplies from the Russia, and then cut off the bridge supplying supplies. And now Crimea, but also Kherson, get totally cut off. They can't get fuel. They can't get ammunition. They can't get food, right? The troops are in real trouble. They're just in real trouble. Then you weaken Crimea by doing that. You weaken the troops that are there, and then you start to attack Crimea more. You prepare for the actual invasion of Crimea. But you've got to weaken them first, and that's why I would say Crimea is the main target of the counteroffensive in a way, but it's several steps away because right now we will get Crimea. It's I always forget. Maybe it's strategy versus tactics. Like the strategy is to weaken Crimea so we can take it back. But the tactics are first we need to get as far south as we can. Then we cut off the highway. Then we cut off the bridge, right? Then we do up. Then it weakens Crimea. Then we attack Crimea. That could be months from now. It could be a year from now. Even though overall the goal is to get Crimea. You get what I'm saying? All right. What else we got, guys? Oof, it's getting cold again here. I was seeing our wonderful Ugandan friend was saying, how far from liberating Bakhmut? Bakhmut, the Ukrainians are getting closer, but it's going slowly. And I don't know. I haven't seen anybody say how long it's going to take. Bakhmut is in eastern Ukraine. We've talked about this before. They're all the way over here. The Russians spent about 11 months trying to take it over. They finally got it the end of May. It was the Wagner group. Remember, the Wagner guys were the ones that won Bakhmut. The Ukrainians have been trying to take it back for a few months now, and the Ukrainians are getting closer and closer. Last week, they took the towns of, Klishivka and Andriivka, and both of those towns are significant because they not only overlook Bakhmut, which is good from above, because better for attacking, but also puts Ukraine in range of attacking the highway. I guess the railway may still not be in range from what I was reading today, and they need the railway too, but the highway, they've now got the highway in range so that they can fire on the highway. And that makes it hard for the Russians to resupply themselves. The question is, how long does that take, right? For them to finally do an assault, like Kilo is saying, the full assault on Bakhmut, I don't know. And I don't know that the Ukrainians know, but they're moving ahead, which is good. It's just every step of this counteroffensive is going slowly. It's just going slowly, unfortunately, but it is, Now, Rainbow Rain is saying it takes long to retake because of the Russian planted mines. I'm going to assume that the Russians also have a lot of mines around Bakhmut. We don't hear about it, but any of you familiar with this? I'm assuming we hear about the mines in the south, right? We hear a lot about the mines that are here and basically all across here, but we don't hear a lot about them up here. Should I assume that there's a hell of a lot of mines? I mean, mines everywhere, Elizabeth says, but okay. Loads of mines everywhere. It's like a game of Twister. Okay. So yeah. So it's the same problem slowing things down. Yep. Yep. All right, what else, guys? What else? What else? What else? What else? More questions. Bakhmut's not critical, but holds lots of Russian troops in place. Yep, and it's also weakening a lot of the Russian troops as well. How about the jets? Did Ukraine get them yet? US F-16s are not coming until next year. The training isn't even going to be over for the first pilots until maybe January or February. So the jets aren't coming anytime soon. We are hoping the French might agree to provide some of their fighter jets. We're hoping the Swedes may as well. We don't know, but it's a possibility. So, but at this point, nothing's happening anytime soon. No. And the Ukrainians still have to train on I believe they may have started on the Swedish jets, and the French ones, I don't know. France did agree, I believe, to train the Ukrainians, which was suspicious. I don't know if the Swedes are Hans, are the Swedes contemplating training? The Swedes are contemplating giving the jets. That was the big news from Sweden a week ago. But I thought the Swedes had announced training 2 weeks ago. And the only reason I say this is because at the time that it happened, right? At the time that it happened, I remember I said, that's a little suspicious that the Swedes are announcing training on a jet they're not even giving Ukraine, right? It made it look like, hey, the Swedes are already planning on doing that. They've already let them try the jet. Now, I did see that, yes, that they tried it and they did very well with trying it out. Yeah. Yep. Vix, I don't know about the money being a loan or a gift. It's very confusing, the US aid. I mean, I'm saying like it's, I know, for example, Ukraine, for example, some of the weapons they're getting from Europe, at least, they're buying. They're actually buying them. So some of it are definitely loans. Absolutely. But I don't know sort of what percentage is what, and I haven't been able to see that sort of anywhere. Very confusing. Very confusing. Hans is saying the Gripen, which is the Swedish plane, is the most practical jet for Ukraine, 500-meter runway, which is 1,500-foot runway. Right, you can land on a highway. Exactly. The holdup on the ATACMS, we talked about that earlier. I mean, the holdup on the ATACMS is, and this is just my gut because Biden won't say, Biden thinks they're an escalation. He thinks it's going to piss off Putin. And he doesn't want to piss off Putin. And why he doesn't want to piss off Putin, who the hell knows? But he seems to think that if you piss off Putin, there'll be World War III or some BS like that. So it's ridiculous to me at this point. Absolutely ridiculous. Dark Irish is saying when Ukraine gets further into Crimea, with Russian civilians in that province, think Russia will continue to be sloppy and risk their own citizens in the area with strikes? Absolutely. Oh God, yes. Yes. So what Dark Irish is saying is that you've got the in Crimea, in southern Ukraine. So the Russians invaded in 2014 and took this. Crimea had a population of 2 million. 1 million of the Ukrainians fled because Russia's a dictatorship, a genocidal dictatorship, and who the hell wants to live under a genocidal dictatorship? So first of all, I would say that all those basically Russian sympathizers that go, oh, the Crimeans voted. They wanted Russia there. Half the Crimeans fled because Russia invaded. So they clearly didn't want the Russians there. Well, half the Crimeans fled and the Russians brought in 2 million more. So 1 million left of Ukrainians and 2 million Russians came in as basically squatters. So you've now got a population of 3 million, but 2 million are Russians trucked in because the Russians are just taking over, right? By physically taking over. Well, by occupying. So what Dark Irish is saying is, would the Russians risk their own citizens by bombing the Ukrainians once they're in Crimea with their troops? And my answer to that is, of course, Russia would risk its own citizens. They don't care. I mean, quite literally, they don't care. They would absolutely positively risk their own citizens, I think. I mean, what I mean by that is the only possibility is if for some crazy reason Putin thought because their citizens are getting hurt, it would make him look bad. I'm not convinced. I think Putin would say, do it anyway. And he would probably tell them to leave if he had to. Or, it becomes an interesting question, though, because if the citizens leave, it makes it a little easier for Ukraine to get a hold, too. Because also, here's the problem. Ukraine will care. Ukraine is not going to want to bomb Russian civilians, right? So Ukraine's going to be worried about, they're going to be worried about it, at least, going into civilian areas where if you knew the civilians weren't there, it's much easier to bomb if you're a Ukrainian who cares about war crimes. But if you're a Russian who doesn't care about war crimes, you'd bomb your own people, I think. So there. I did see that, but I didn't see much more about it. Tired Guy is saying, did you see an article in the Kyiv Independent claiming that a German machine used in the production of tank shells is on its way to Russia? I saw it, but then didn't see anything else about it. So I don't know what the story actually is. I don't know, is somebody breaking sanctions or I just don't know what the story is with that. But I saw it. But as I said, I can't tell you anything about it. If you know, feel free to say. Okay, Mods, you just blocked somebody whose comment was actually correct about Crimea. That I don't think that wasn't a troll comment. The person who said they're going to be surviving on rats, that wasn't a troll comment. That was somebody saying that basically it's going to be impossible for the Russians who live there once people take over. Was that somebody? I don't think that was a troll. Yeah, Ash, you muted him, maybe or blocked him. Unless I'm screwing up here, I think that was somebody who wasn't a troll. Yeah. Hey, as I always tell people, I blocked one of my moderators once by accident on YouTube. and I once made a Russian troll. Thanks, Ash. I once made a Russian troll. Peter does lives from Kyiv. Sorry, Peter, you got blocked by accident on TikTok. We brought you back. Sorry about that. I was just saying I once blocked one of my moderators on YouTube at the beginning when I first started doing this. And even worse, I blocked one of my moderators and I accidentally gave a Russian troll. I was trying to block them. I gave them moderator privileges. I made them a moderator instead of blocking them, and nobody knew, and the troll didn't know. And I was literally sitting here going, I'm like giving you guys the news, and I'm with my mouse trying to find the guy to basically not make him a moderator anymore. Oh my God, scary. Anyway, yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Peter's good. Sorry, Peter. It happens. Yeah, that was a funny one, Adam. Yes. And thank you, Patricia, for the ice cream cone. He's back. Hey, Peter. Oh, well. Anyway, do keep the gifts coming on TikTok. What else we got, guys? Any more questions? What do you think? I don't want to drag things out, or topics you want to talk about with regards to the war. Anything else? What else? Thank you, Gaia, for the gift. Quick summary of Crimea. I mean, the only thing going on with Crimea right now is there were a lot of explosions right before the show started. Like three series of explosions, excuse me. Sevastopol, a little bit further up. What is this? Evpatoria or Yevpatoria? So here, and here, some explosions reportedly all the way up here too. So like at least 4 different locations on Crimea. One of the reports said they sounded like missiles coming in from Ukraine, which is great. There was also, even before those attacks, let me pull this up really quick. There were reports that, here it is. I was looking for my notes from earlier. There were reports that Ukraine claimed a successful strike on the Black Sea Fleet near Sevastopol. I believe that was before the explosions. And the unknown saboteurs, this was good news, unknown saboteurs seriously damaged 2 planes and a helicopter at a military airbase in Moscow. That's very interesting because of the distance. Thank you, Elizabeth, right? I mean, that gets very interesting when that happens, right? I don't know. So Edita's saying what Peter wrote. Peter, I mean, I don't know if Peter's correct, but he wasn't being a troll. Peter was saying that, come winter, the Russians living in Crimea are going to be living off of rats because they're going to be surrounded. Have a good night, Gabianga. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Exactly. I know it's late where you are. Thank you for joining us. It was nice of you. But I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in the winter in Crimea. There have certainly been reports, for example, that they're already having fuel shortages in Crimea, basically because the Russians are taking the fuel either for their troops or they're taking it for export to make money, and the Crimeans aren't getting fuel. But beyond that, who knows? We don't know. The thing is, look, we don't really know yet how the counteroffensive is going to proceed. I mean, one thought is that because winter's coming, thank you, Robert, because winter's coming, things are getting wet and then they're going to get freezing and frozen. Neither of those helps in terms of digging in and staying in the ground. You risk freezing to death, right? So it's not clear that once Ukraine gets as far as it can, to the coast, which is the goal, right? Cut Russian occupation in half. Once they get as close as they can, if we give them the weapons they need, which Biden currently isn't doing with the ATACMS, they will be able to hit the highway and they're able to cut this highway off. If they can cut that highway off, then I think you're going to see the Ukrainians blow the bejesus out of the Kerch Bridge. But I mean, really go crazy and take out several spans of the bridge, blow the hell out of it to cut off Crimea and Kherson completely from the Russian occupation. Now, they may not be able to attack because it's winter. That I don't know. You military folks will know that better than me. But they will be able to cut it off. And then you've got the Russians spending a very cold winter with no fuel supplies, with no food shipped in, with no, right? I mean, all that, and not just the Russian troops, but the Russians living there, right? That gets difficult. So you might have the Ukrainians just basically squeeze Crimea until spring and just cut it off the entire time, you know? Russians are definitely repairing the bridge. My nose is itching, sorry. The Russians are definitely repairing the bridge, Carl. We don't know kind of where it stands right. I mean, somebody knows because they're looking at the satellite photos. Nobody has really talked about where it stands right now. But yeah, they can just look at the satellite shift photos and know how it's coming. Absolutely. So, Edward, thank you for the super chat. Since Russia's only drafting countrymen, meaning men from the countryside, not the men in Moscow and St. Petersburg, do you think that might cause a revolt from the countryside citizens? And is it true? Why does not Ukraine spread this? You know, the problem is that gets you into the whole issue of the psyche of Russians overall. Thank you, Tomcat. I would rely on people who have been like my friend Marion, who's with us a lot, who is, you know, a Russian expert. I mean, Marion is fluent in Russian legal expert. I mean, she knows, she's lived there a lot. She knows the Russians, but the Russians historically don't revolt, right? Sometimes they do. They did in 1917, right? But they did in 2011, but they don't revolt too much. So that I don't know if they're going to revolt. The one thing that's interesting to me, though, is Putin's worried about it. Putin has made clear that he doesn't want to declare a war because of it. Remember, that's why it's a military operation. He doesn't want to have a nationwide draft. He doesn't want to have a nationwide mobilization where they basically order all the industries to, you know, shift to war footing, because he's afraid of upsetting the Russian people if this becomes a full-fledged war. And that has been fascinating to me because we talk about Russia being a dictatorship, and typically dictatorships, well, you worry about the people if they're literally going to overthrow you, but otherwise you don't worry about the people, you just oppress them. The fact that Putin is worried about the Russian people if he were to have a full-fledged draft, a military, you know, draft across the country, is interesting to me. That suggests that there is some kind of a revolt that maybe he is worried about. Yeah. You know, but I don't know what we can do to spread that. I mean, they already know. Thank you, Marv. I mean, the Russian people certainly know what's going on. I think they have a good idea what's going on with the war. They know it's not going well. But, you know, is it enough to make them stand up and finally do something? Right, maybe, but I don't know. You know, I'm not convinced. Wild Hunt says, I think they've bred the spirit out of the general public and just have serfs now. I mean, that's certainly a problem. Oh, Tiffany, you're there. Hey, Tiff. My friend Tiffany, who just had a baby. Everybody give Tiffany's an old friend of Marion's and mine. She went with us to Russia when Marion and I and Tiffany went to the Russian Far East when we went to Petropavlovsk and Kamchatka. You remember talking about that trip. Tiffany was our Alaskan representative with us on that trip. Stalin's purges scarred the country, so made revolt less likely. Interesting. Yeah. No, it's a very, I mean, sorry guys, I burned my lips yesterday and I'm absolutely killing myself It's hurt so badly. I mean, I've already had enough problems with my lips. You guys may remember over the last year, they're always so dry. And literally, I was eating pizza and I burned them. And I just kind of went, are you freaking kidding me? Are you absolute freaking kidding me? Oh my God. Anyway, what do you do? All right. Tiffany, you're also getting congratulations over on TikTok, just so you know. Just so you know. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, people like Tiffany who know Russia better, and Tiffany's in Alaska, which, as you know, you can see Russia from Tiffany's doorstep. No, actually, Russia is very close to Alaska, and the Alaskans have a lot of. I was telling people yesterday. Actually, one of our friends here, Tiff, was asking yesterday. Actually, you can tell us. One of the questions yesterday was about the extent of contacts between Native Alaskans and Siberian Yupiks. And I was saying, I'm not an expert on that, but I know just from my experience with Alaska, tons of contacts between the natives, family contacts and everything else. But maybe you can tell people a little bit too, if you want, in the comments there. Oh, she's feeding. Okay. I didn't mean to make you type while you're feeding the baby. If you're able to type it in. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Sorry. Tiffany's feeding the baby while typing. But I was telling him that, yeah, there's a lot of context between the native communities there, but I'm just assuming you've got a little bit more that you could share. I need to get both you and Marion on the show at some point. Anyway, you learned, Addie Cox says he or she learned that a cat was a mayor in Alaska for many years. Did you have a cat as a mayor? I'm going to guess. Knowing Alaska, that does not surprise me. Alaska was the funniest place. I mean, I loved Alaska, but boy, the weirdest place. Kitska had a Kitsia. Anyway, night, Callum, go to bed. He's crackered. A few cities had dogs. I remember having a city in the lower 48 that had a dog as a mayor. That sounds familiar. That does sound familiar to me. What else we got, guys? Thank you, Not Jedrick, for the gift. What else we got, guys? Anything else? Yeah, Daniel was the one asking about it because he's heavily involved with the Native community up there in Canada. So it could be useful. And also, Daniel, I can put you and Tiffany in touch privately anyway, as far as that goes. So feel free to reach out to her. Yeah, I'll do the recap if we're done with questions, I'll do the recap. Let me see. But here we go. It's okay. We even got USIA funds, remember, and we even funded exchanges. I facilitated some when I was working in Magadan. Oh, I forgot you were working in Magadan. I didn't even remember that. Tiffany was even working in the Russian Far East. Yeah, Daniel, you know what I'll do? Remind me later, Daniel. Just send me a message on Discord, and I'll give you Tiffany's email. Tiffany, I have your email, I think. I don't even know if I've got your email. I think I have your email. Send me your email, Tiffany, just to be safe. I think I've got your email, and I can give it to Daniel because, like I said, he works with the Native communities up in that big region in Canada. I'm forgetting what it's called. You may know. I'm not up on my Canadian Native groups as much as I am the Alaskan ones, of course. Let me see, Tiff, if I've got your one moment here, Tiffany. Oh, I don't think I've got you know what? Your contact information disappeared from my phone. You know what? Send me your phone again, Tiff, and send me your email. I'll give Daniel your Nunavut. Yeah. I'll give Daniel your email. Yep. Oh, how very interesting. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, send me just, you can Facebook it. I hate Facebook Messenger, but you can use it if you have to. Only because I don't see it a lot. Anyway, yeah, no, it's sort of Nunavut, Central Canada. I mean, ish. I don't know my Canada, but I remember it being kind of in the middle. But it is Nunavut, he was saying. Yeah. All right, guys, let me do the quick summary, and I think we're done of the news. So these are the topics we've talked about today. And we connected some Alaskans and some Canadians, all the better. It is day 574 of Putin's special 3-day military operation. I talked about really interesting. Thank you, Addie New. I'm not going to Discord tonight because we did Discord last night. Let me take a break tonight. I was started by talking about a really interesting analysis that was suggesting that the Russians have already had 300,000 killed in the war in Ukraine, which is pretty wild, and 600,000 to 700,000 injured. Then mentioned that there are reports right before coming on the show tonight of explosions all over Western Canada. Your citizenship test? What citizenship test? Were you born somewhere else? Sorry, Tiffany's confusing me here. I'm saying she memorized it for her citizenship. Oh, did you get Canadian citizenship, maybe? I'm confused. Okay, whatever. ATACMS. Biden is apparently not going to give Ukraine ATACMS tomorrow with the new military bill, the new military aid package that he is announcing once Zelensky goes to the White House tomorrow. These are the long-range missiles that everybody says Ukraine needs. Thank you, Addie. Ukrainian military is claiming a successful strike on the Black Sea Fleet. Oh, Tiffany, that's what it is. Okay. Unknown saboteurs have seriously damaged 2 planes and a helicopter at a Russian military air base near Moscow. Counteroffensive update. Russian losses have significantly increased in Western Zaporizhia in recent days, according to the Institute for the Study of War. We then talked about a growing grain battle between Ukraine and Poland that's getting a little out of control, and both sides need to tone it down because this alliance is too important. Norway is going to restrict the entry of vehicles with Russian registration, joining the rest of the Eastern European countries, the Baltics, Finland, and Poland. President Zelensky talked to the United Nations Security Council today and proposed reforms of the Security Council to basically get Russia off the Security Council and certainly take away Russia's veto. And honestly, that's a pet peeve of mine too. We should be, this is another thing where the U.S. is afraid. There ought to be a real movement to kick Russia basically out of I'd kick Russia out of the UN and make Russia apply as a separate country, because Russia was allowed to inherit the USSR's Security Council seat, and that's ridiculous because Ukraine, the Baltic states, all of them are as much a member of the USSR as Russia was, but for whatever crazy reason, we literally handed Russia's Security Council seat, the USSR seat, to Russia, and it was absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. President Zelensky talked about that. Putin announced that he will be going to China later this year, one of the only other countries he can visit because he's a war criminal. Zelensky will be meeting with Senator Schumer and all the U.S. senators probably tomorrow in Washington. He'll be meeting with President Biden. He will also be meeting with Republican House Speaker, the leader of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. Politico did an interesting story saying that the government shutdown that may happen in the next 2 weeks could actually cause problems for Ukraine. It could kill training on Abrams tanks. It could kill training on F-16s. It also could harm some of the weapons, such as the Abrams that we're sending to Ukraine, because the actual people, I believe, who will be flying them over might not be essential staff, so they wouldn't be working. All right, that is it. I will go. I will see you guys tomorrow. Do join us tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern. Little doggy wants to run in and out like she always does. Do join us tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for coming. Thank you for the gifts. And that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully the government shutdown won't happen, but we're going to find out 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure how the Republicans are going to pass anything, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, all right, guys. I will talk to you tomorrow. And yeah, we'll do Discord tomorrow. All right. Once I've got my new very cool auction items up tomorrow. Bye, Tula Kiwi. All right. Bye, guys. All right. See you later. Thanks, guys. Thank you, mods, as always. Oh, yes. And Manda Bear has the dog home. The dog's been doing well. She gave a little doggy update. He's been on his pain meds and stuff, but he's happy to be home. So, or she, excuse me, Ruby's happy to be home. So we're glad to hear that. So yay. All right, guys. Talk to you later.